You can't lease what you don't own, Mom snaps, her voice echoing through the pottery studio that once belonged to my grandmother. I reach into my desk drawer, fingers trembling slightly as I pull out the house deed. The paper feels heavier than it should, weighted with 3 years of secrets. You're right, I say softly, watching their faces as reality crashes in. Good thing I own it then. The silence that follows is deafening. Laura lunges for the papers, but I step back, clutching them against my chest. You can't do this. My children. Your children have a trust fund from Daniel's parents. The one you didn't tell anyone about. 3 months ago, I was just Ellen Martin, the compliant daughter who'd spent decades quietly supporting her family. Today, I'm the woman who's about to walk away from everything they think they know about me. But let me start from the beginning. Flashback childhood memories, the foundation of sacrifice, the first clay pot I ever made cracked in the kiln. I was 8, standing in Grandma Rose's studio, tears streaming down my face as I stared at the broken pieces. Darling, she'd whispered, kneeling beside me, sometimes things need to break before they can become something beautiful. That was the day I learned about disappointment, not just the crack in the pottery, but the look on my mother's face when she saw me covered in clay dust. Eleanor Rose Martin, she'd scolded, using my full name like a weapon. Look at the state of you. This is what comes of playing in the dirt. Grandma Rose had waited until Mom was out of earshot before whispering, Don't let anyone tell you that creation is dirty work, Ellen. It's the cleanest thing you can do with your hands. I thought of that moment 34 years later as I shaped the clay on my wheel, the familiar rhythm calming my nerves after Mom's phone call. 3 rings. Always 3 rings before she'd hang up if I didn't answer. This time, I let it go to voicemail, my hands never stopping their dance with the clay. The studio around me held decades of memories. Not just mine, but Grandma's too. Her wheel still sat in the corner where she'd left it, a constant reminder of the woman who'd taught me that art wasn't frivolous, it was survival. The shelves lined with glazed pieces told stories. The bowl I'd made for my first apartment, the vase I'd thrown the day my divorce was finalized, the memorial urn that had held Grandma's ashes before I'd scattered them in the garden outside. Present the phone message. Ellen, honey, we need to talk. It's about your father's health and Laura's situation. Thanksgiving dinner, 6 o'clock. Don't be late. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since I'd seen my family. 3 peaceful weeks without crisis calls, without emergency meetings, without the familiar weight of other people's problems settling on my shoulders. I should have known it was too good to last. I wiped my clay-covered hands on my apron, glancing around the converted barn that had been my sanctuary for the past 15 years. The smell of earth and fire, of creation and possibility, filled every corner. This place had saved me after the divorce, given me purpose when Michael tried to reduce my life's work to hobby income in court. It had sheltered me through the lonely years of single motherhood, provided for David's college tuition, kept food on our table when his father's child support checks bounced. My phone buzzed again. A text from Laura. Mom told you about dinner? We really need your help, Ellen. Things have been difficult. Difficult. Laura's favorite euphemism for the chaos that seemed to follow her everywhere. At 50, my older sister had perfected the art of appearing successful while everything crumbled behind the scenes. The perfect house in the perfect neighborhood, the husband with the impressive job title, the twins at expensive private colleges. All of it held together with loans, credit cards, and periodic bailouts from family members who didn't ask too many questions. I learned not to ask questions years ago. Flashback, the pattern begins. College years. Ellen will help, Mom had said when Laura dropped out of law school her senior year. She's good with numbers, and she doesn't have anything important going on. I was 24, had just gotten my first gallery showing, had 3 commissions lined up that would have established my reputation as a serious artist. But Laura needed someone to manage her finances, to help her get back on her feet after her breakdown over grades and peer pressure and the crushing weight of expectations. It's just temporary, Dad had assured me. Just until she finds her direction. Temporary had lasted 2 years. By the time Laura met Daniel and announced their engagement, I'd missed my gallery showing, lost my commissions, and watched other artists take opportunities that should have been mine. But Laura was stable again, radiant in her wedding dress, and everyone said how wonderful it was that her little sister had been there to help. "You're so good at putting others first," Mom had said at the reception, squeezing my hand. "It's your gift, Ellen. Some people are natural caregivers." I'd smiled and nodded, not mentioning that my bank account was empty from covering Laura's therapy bills, that my own studio apartment was falling apart because I couldn't afford rent and her expenses. Caregiver. As if sacrifice was a talent instead of a choice I'd never consciously made. Present 3 days before Thanksgiving, the studio. The afternoon light filtered through the high windows of the barn, casting long shadows across the floor where dozens of pieces sat drying. A set of dinnerware commissioned for a golden anniversary. A memorial sculpture for a grieving family. A series of bowls I'd been working on for my own satisfaction. Something rare, creating purely for the joy of it. I pulled into my parents' driveway at exactly 6, noting the way Dad's shoulders had curved inward since his last checkup. He was 78 now, though he insisted he felt 50. Mom met me at the door, her smile too bright, the kind she wore when delivering bad news wrapped in cheerful packaging. "Ellen, perfect timing. Come in, come in. Laura's already here with wonderful news about her interior design business." Interior design business. That was new. Last I'd heard, Laura was taking a break from work to focus on personal growth after Daniel's company had relocated him to a lower paying position. But I followed Mom through the house I'd grown up in, noting the fresh paint in the hallway that covered the pencil marks where she'd measured our heights as children. The dining room table was set for 4, but only 3 places had wine glasses. My place never had alcohol, a leftover from the years when I'd been pregnant, then nursing, and it had somehow become permanent. Another small way of being slightly separate, slightly other. Laura sat ramrod straight in her chair, designer purse clutched in her manicured hands. Even in crisis, she looked polished. Professional highlights in her blonde hair, subtle makeup that probably cost more than I spend on groceries in a month. She looked like she'd been crying, though her mascara remained perfect. "Thanks for coming," Laura said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Of course." I took my seat, noting the envelope beside Dad's plate. Medical bills, probably. They'd been piling up since his heart attack last spring, despite Medicare and the supplemental insurance he'd thought would be enough. Dad cleared his throat, a sound I'd been hearing more frequently lately. "Girls, your mother and I have been discussing our options. The house is too big for us now, and with the medical expenses. We've made a decision," Mom interrupted, that familiar steel in her voice that brooked no argument. "Your father needs live-in care, at least temporarily. The stairs are becoming impossible for him, and I can't lift him if he falls again." I could see where this was heading, but I waited for the other shoe to drop. With my family, there was always another shoe. "We'd like to convert your pottery studio," Mom continued, her voice gentle but inexorable. "It has good natural light, level access, and it's close enough for me to check on him but separate enough for privacy. Perfect for an assisted living setup." The words hit me like a kiln door slamming shut on unfinished work. "My studio?" "Oh, Ellen," Laura sighed, reaching across the table to pat my hand condescendingly. "Don't be dramatic. You can set up your pottery wheel in the basement. Or maybe the garage? And honestly, maybe it's time to consider something more practical? You're 52. Most women your age are thinking about retirement, not playing in the mud. Playing in the mud. 25 years of commissioned work, gallery shows, teaching workshops that supported families, creating beauty that would outlast us all reduced to playing in the mud. I have obligations," I said carefully, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Students who depend on my classes. Commission pieces that are already paid for. A waiting list of clients. Nothing that can't be relocated," Dad said, his voice gentle but firm. "Ellen, we raised you to be responsible. Your mother and I need help, and Laura's going through a rough patch with Daniel's business. Family takes care of family." Daniel, Laura's husband, the man who'd once told me my pottery was cute while casually mentioning that one of my pieces would look quaint in their powder room. The same man who'd written a check for that piece without blinking, probably spending more on it than I had groceries that month. What kind of rough patch? The look that passed between my parents was loaded with meaning. Laura's jaw tightened, and for a moment, her mask slipped. I saw exhaustion there, fear, the kind of bone-deep worry that came from secrets kept too long. The company's restructuring, Laura said finally. Daniel's been reassessed. We're exploring our living options. Translation: they were broke or close to it. And somehow, that meant I needed to give up the space where I'd built my entire career, where I'd found myself after my marriage fell apart, where I created beauty and meaning and financial independence one piece at a time. I'll need some time to think about it, I said. Time? Mom's voice rose slightly, the way it did when she was gearing up for a guilt offensive. Ellen, your father's health can't wait for your convenience. We're not getting any younger, and Dr. Patterson says the next fall could be the last. The guilt settled over me like a lead blanket, familiar, suffocating, effective. This was how it always worked in our family. Laura's problems became emergencies, and I was expected to provide the solution. But this time felt different. This time, they weren't just asking for money or babysitting or emotional support. They wanted my sanctuary. Inner monologue, the weight of expectation. I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment away from their expectant faces. Standing in front of the mirror where I'd watched myself grow from child to teenager to adult, I saw Grandma Rosa's eyes looking back at me. The same green-gray color, the same stubborn set to the chin that had driven my grandfather crazy. You're the responsible one, Mom had been telling me since I was 12 and Laura was getting in trouble for skipping school. We can always count on Ellen to do the right thing. But what was the right thing? Sacrificing my livelihood for parents who'd never understood what I did. Enabling Laura's pattern of crisis and rescue that had been going on for decades? Or finally standing up for the life I'd built with my own hands? I thought about the acceptance letter hidden in my jewelry box at home. The one from the Kyoto Ceramic Academy's International Residency Program. The one I'd been staring at for 2 weeks, afraid to want something so completely for myself. Present dinner continues. When I returned to the table, they were deep in discussion about caregiver costs and renovation budgets. Laura was taking notes in a leather-bound planner, looking every inch the efficient executive she'd never quite managed to become. We've been researching assisted living facilities too, Dad was saying, but the costs. And I'd prefer to stay in familiar surroundings. Of course you would, I said, settling back into my chair. And my feelings about my workspace don't factor into the familiar surroundings discussion? Ellen, Laura snapped, then immediately softened her voice. I'm sorry. It's just. This is really difficult for all of us. We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Everyone except me, apparently. Mom's lips tightened. That's not fair. We're asking you to share space temporarily. You act like we're asking you to give up pottery entirely. Aren't you? The question hung in the air like smoke. If I give up the studio, where exactly am I supposed to work? The basement gets flooded every spring. The garage has no climate control, no proper ventilation for glazing. You might as well ask me to give up pottery entirely. Maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing, Laura muttered, then looked shocked that she'd said it out loud. The silence that followed was deafening. Laura flushed red, Dad looked uncomfortable, and Mom wore that expression she got when someone had said something true but impolitic. I mean, Laura continued, digging herself deeper. You've had a good run with the pottery thing. But at some point, don't you want more? A real relationship? Financial security? A purpose beyond making dishes? A purpose beyond making dishes. As if feeding people, creating objects that would outlast us all, building a business with my own hands wasn't purpose enough. You're right, I said quietly. I do want more. They relaxed visibly, interpreting this as capitulation. I want recognition for what I've built. I want my space respected. I want to stop being the family's backup plan for every crisis. I stood up, my napkin falling to the floor. And I want to stop pretending that what I do doesn't matter. Flashback of the divorce. Building from nothing. Michael had stood in the studio 20 years earlier, his lawyer's letter in his hand, explaining why he deserved half of everything I'd built during our marriage. It's just a hobby, Ellen, he'd said, looking around the barn with distaste. You can do pottery anywhere. Maybe it's time to get serious about a real career. That's when I learned that just a hobby could pay a man's alimony and child support. That's when I bought him out with money I'd been secretly saving for years. Money he didn't even know existed because he'd never paid attention to the hobby income. That's when I took on extra classes, worked 18-hour days, taught every workshop I could find to keep what was mine. My son David was 12 then, old enough to understand that daddy was leaving, but not old enough to understand why mommy cried at her pottery Wilson nights after putting him to bed. Will you still make me bowls? He'd ask, sitting cross-legged on the studio floor while I worked, his math homework spread out beside him. Always, I'd promised. And I had. Even when he went away to college, even when he moved across the country for his engineering job, I'd shipped him a new piece each Christmas. A reminder that home was wherever someone was making something beautiful just for you. Present 2 days before Thanksgiving, the discovery, I found the letter while cleaning out the desk in my studio office, procrastinating on the decision Mom was waiting for. It was tucked behind some old tax returns, written in Grandma Rose's careful script on her personal stationery. The envelope was addressed to me in fading blue ink, but I'd never seen it before. My dearest Ellen, it began. If you're reading this, I suspect your family is pressuring you to give up the studio again. They never understood what we do here, did they? Your grandfather used to say I was wasting time with my little pots and bowls. He changed his tune when the bank threatened foreclosure in 1978 and my little pots saved the farm. My hands shook as I read on. There were pages of it, stories I'd never heard about Grandma's early struggles, about the gallery in Philadelphia that had discovered her work, about the commission that had paid for Dad's college education. All things my family had somehow forgotten or chosen not to remember. I'm leaving the studio to you not just because you have talent, but because you understand what it means to create something beautiful in a world that often mistakes utility for value. Your mother will want you to be practical. Your sister will want you to be available. Your father will want you to be dutiful. But I want you to be yourself, completely and unapologetically. You're stronger than you know, and more valuable than they understand. At the bottom, in handwriting shakier than the rest, she'd added, P.S. I've made arrangements with Margaret Donovan at the Kyoto Ceramic Academy. When you're ready to choose yourself, call her. The scholarship is waiting. The phone number was written in the margin, along with a note. Tell her Rose's granddaughter is ready to bloom. I sat in the studio for hours after reading the letter, surrounded by 25 years of my own work. Every piece told a story of growth, of persistence, of beauty created one careful layer at a time. The dinnerware sets that had Grace anniversary celebrations, the urns that had held final farewells, the sculptural pieces that existed purely for the joy of form and function united. I'd built this life carefully, deliberately, one decision at a time. The decision to leave Michael when I realized he saw me as a convenience rather than a partner. The decision to buy the property instead of renting. The decision to turn down the safe teaching job at the community college to pursue my own work. Every choice had led me here, to this moment of choosing again. Present the phone call. My hands were trembling as I dialed the number. Kyoto Ceramic Academy, Margaret speaking. My name is Ellen Martin. I'm calling about. I found this number in a letter from my grandmother, Rose Martin. Ellen. The voice warmed immediately, a smile audible across the ocean. Rose wrote to me about you years ago. She was so proud of your work. I'd been hoping you'd call. She wrote to you? I sank into the desk chair that had been Grandma's favorite. She sent photos of your pieces, along with a rather substantial endowment for our scholarship program. She wanted to ensure you'd have a place here whenever you were ready. She said your family had a talent for taking up all the air in the room, and someday you need a place to breathe freely. I laughed, surprising myself. It sounded exactly like something Grandmother would say, blunt, accurate, and delivered with enough love to take the sting out. The timing is. I paused, looking around the studio that might not be mine for much longer. It might be perfect, actually. Our next residency term begins in January. 6 months, fully funded, including housing and meals. You'd be working with master ceramicists from around the world, learning techniques that go back centuries. Rose believed you were ready for this level of study. January. 2 months away. Enough time to finish my current commissions, arrange care for the pieces in my home, settle the studio situation one way or another. Can I think about it? Of course. But Ellen? Rose left specific instructions that if you called, I should tell you this. Stop asking permission to be extraordinary. Permission was never theirs to give. Present Thanksgiving Day, the gathering storm. The table was set for 6 this year. David had driven in from Seattle, his first Thanksgiving home in 3 years. At 26, he looked so much like his father at that age, same dark hair curling at the collar, same serious brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. But when he smiled, he was all mine. So, Grandma and Grandpa want to move into Mom's studio? He asked, cutting his turkey with the precision he brought to everything. Engineering had taught him to think systematically, to question assumptions. Temporarily, Laura said quickly, her voice bright with forced optimism. Just until we figure out permanent care for Dad. It's really the most logical solution. Temporarily, David repeated, glancing at me with raised eyebrows. Like when you temporarily moved into Mom's apartment after your first divorce? That lasted 2 years. Laura's smile faltered. That was different. I was starting over. Going through a difficult transition. Aren't we all always transitioning? David asked mildly, reaching for the cranberry sauce Mom had made from scratch because she convinced herself it was easier than buying canned. Mom's built her entire career in that studio. It's not just where she works, it's who she is. Who she is, Mom repeated, setting down her fork with a sharp click that cut through the dinner conversation, is a daughter and a sister with responsibilities to her family. David, this isn't your decision to make. David's jaw tightened, a gesture he'd inherited from my side of the family. I'm not trying to make decisions for anyone. I'm just saying that Mom's work matters. Her space matters. She shouldn't have to give up her livelihood because other people didn't plan for their futures. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dad cleared his throat diplomatically, but Laura's face had flushed an angry red. That's incredibly unfair, she snapped. You don't know what you're talking about. None of us planned for a pandemic to destroy Daniel's business. None of us planned for Dad to have a heart attack at 78. Sometimes life happens, and families have to adapt. You're right, I said quietly, setting down my water glass. Life happens. And I've been adapting to other people's crises for most of my adult life. The table fell silent except for the soft jazz Mom always played during holiday meals. I could feel them all staring at me, Mom with her practiced disappointment, Dad with his gentle confusion, Laura with calculation hiding behind tears that were already forming. What I know, I continued, is that I've spent most of my adult life putting everyone else's needs before my own. Laura's financial crises, Mom and Dad's health scares, everyone's emotional emergencies. I've been the family safety net for so long that you've forgotten I might have dreams that don't involve catching other people when they fall. Ellen, Dad said carefully. Family means making sacrifices. For each other, I interrupted. The phrase is, for each other. But in this family, the sacrifices only go one direction. When has anyone sacrificed anything for my dreams? Laura slammed her hand on the table, making the glasses jump. That's ridiculous. We've always supported your pottery hobby. Stop calling it a hobby. The words exploded out of me with 25 years of suppressed frustration. It's my career. It's how I paid for this food, how I helped with Dad's medical bills, how I've been supplementing all of your lives while you treated it like finger painting. The silence that followed was deafening. David reached over and squeezed my hand under the table, a gesture of solidarity that meant more than any words could have. I've made a decision, I said, about the studio. Laura leaned forward eagerly, clearly expecting capitulation. We can start moving Dad's things next week. I found some beautiful furniture that would fit perfectly. I'm not giving up the studio. Another silence, this one sharper, more dangerous. Ellen, Dad said with forced calm. We already discussed this. We need. You discussed it. I listened. Now I'm telling you my answer. I pulled the letter from my purse, set it on the table like a trump card I'd been saving. 3 weeks ago, I found this from Grandma Rose. She anticipated this conversation. Mom snatched the letter before anyone else could react, scanned it quickly, her lips tightening with each line. This is ridiculous. You can't make life decisions based on some sentimental. I've been accepted to the Kyoto Ceramic Academy's residency program. The words dropped into the room like stones into still water, creating ripples of shock that spread across every face. Laura's fork clattered to her plate. Kyoto? As in Japan? 6 months, fully funded. I leave in January. You can't be serious, Mom said, her voice rising to that pitch that meant she was gearing up for a full offensive. Your father's health will be in the same state whether I'm here or not. Better, actually, since you won't be expecting me to subsidize his care while simultaneously giving up my livelihood to provide it. The words hung in the air like pottery glaze before firing, fragile, dangerous, about to become permanent. Flashback of the pattern of sacrifice. I was 35 the first time I realized how much money I'd given Laura over the years. She'd called in tears about Daniel's temporary job loss, about the mortgage payment they couldn't make, about the twins needing winter coats and school supplies. Just until Daniel finds something new, she'd promised. You know we'd do the same for you. But when would I need the same? I was divorced, responsible for my own life, careful with money in a way that Laura had never learned to be. I'd sat in my kitchen that night, adding up the anonymous transfers, the loans that were never repaid, the emergencies that happened with suspicious regularity. $15,000. That's what I'd given her over 5 years, while working overtime to keep my own bills paid, while turning down opportunities that required travel because David needed stability, while living in a one-bedroom apartment above the studio because I couldn't afford anything bigger. I'd never asked for the money back. Family didn't keep track, Mom always said. But family was supposed to be reciprocal, and I was starting to realize that our version of family only worked one way. Present the revelation continues. What do you mean, subsidize his care? Dad's voice was genuinely confused. I met his eyes steadily. The anonymous checks that have been covering your medical co-pays for the past 8 months? That was me. The down payment on Laura's condo 3 years ago? Also me. The twins' college tuition that you thought came from Daniel's bonus? Me again. Laura had gone pale, her carefully applied makeup suddenly looking garish against her white skin. Ellen, you don't understand. Daniel's situation is complicated. Complicated? I laughed, and it came out bitter. I hired a private investigator, Laura. I know about the gambling. I know about the credit card fraud. I know about the money you stole from your own children's education funds. David's hand tightened on mine. I hadn't told him about the investigator, but he looked more proud than shocked. You hired a? You investigated me? Laura's voice cracked. How could you? I'm your sister, and I'm your sister too. But somehow that only matters when you need something from me. Mom stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Ellen, this is enough. We're family. We protect each other. We don't hire strangers to dig up. Protect each other? The laugh that came out of me was harsh, unfamiliar. Mom, when have you ever protected me? When Laura destroyed my art project in high school because she was jealous of the attention I was getting. When Michael tried to steal my studio in the divorce? When you convinced David I was too busy to attend his college graduation? David looked up sharply, confusion replacing the pride in his expression. What? I never missed your graduation by choice, I told him, the words I'd been holding for 6 years finally spilling out. Your grandmother told me you'd ask me not to come because you were embarrassed by my hobby and didn't want your engineering friends to meet the family potter. I never said that. His voice was strained, hurt. I asked constantly where you were. Grandma said you were at some important pottery conference, that you couldn't get away. I was devastated that you weren't there. The pieces were falling into place like shards of broken pottery, each revelation cutting deeper than the last. Mom's face had gone red, then white, then red again. You manipulated both of us, I said, looking directly at her. You told him I chose work over him and told me he chose embarrassment over family. Why? So I'd feel guilty enough to skip the next opportunity? So David would think his mother was selfish and career obsessed? Mom's mouth opened and closed without sound, looking for all the world like a fish gasping for air. I can't do this anymore, I said, standing up. The movement felt monumental, like rising from decades of sitting in the wrong chair. I'm done being the family's emergency fund. I'm done being the backup plan. I'm done making myself small so everyone else can feel big. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Margaret, it's Ellen Martin. I'm ready to accept the residency position. How soon can we arrange the details? Ellen. Laura shot to her feet, tears streaming down her face now. Real ones, not the tactical variety. You can't just abandon us. What about Dad? What about my children? What about family loyalty? I ended the call and faced a table full of faces, some shocked, some angry, all disbelieving that compliant Ellen was finally saying no. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said. I'm making the same choice you've all made for years. I'm putting myself first. As for family loyalty, I've been loyal for decades. I'm still willing to be family, but I'm not willing to be your victim anymore. Inner monologue, the breaking point. Walking out of that house felt like stepping through fire, terrifying, necessary, irreversible. I sat in my car in their driveway for 10 minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel, half expecting one of them to come after me. But the front door remained closed, the windows glowing with warm yellow light that no longer felt welcoming. I thought about all the holidays I'd spent managing other people's emotions, all the career opportunities I declined because someone in the family needed me, all the years I'd made myself available for other people's emergencies while my own dreams waited patiently in the background. Grandma Rose had seen this coming. She'd lived it herself, married to a man who saw her art as frivolous until it literally saved their home. She'd left me more than just a studio, she'd left me permission to choose myself. Present 2 weeks later, the investigation. The private investigator's report made for depressing reading. Richard Chen had been thorough, almost cruelly so. Bank statements, credit reports, social media monitoring, even interviews with neighbors and former colleagues painted a picture of a family in free fall, held together by lies and propped up by my automatic financial interventions. Daniel's gambling problem went back years, not months. The business hadn't failed because of the pandemic. It had failed because Daniel had been systematically embezzling from client accounts to cover his losses. Laura had known, had been complicit, had been moving money between accounts to hide the extent of the damage. The twins, Sam and Sarah, weren't living in luxury at their private colleges. They were working 2 jobs each, sharing textbooks, eating ramen because their tuition was being paid in installments and there was nothing left for living expenses. They thought their parents were just going through a rough patch. My anonymous transfers hadn't been enabling Laura's recovery. They'd been funding Daniel's continued gambling and Laura's desperate attempts to maintain the illusion of success. The money had never been used for the emergencies she described. Medical bills, my ass. Designer handbags and casino trips were more like it. I sat in my studio, surrounded by work in progress, and felt a strange mix of betrayal and relief. Betrayal at the depth of the deception. Relief at finally understanding why I'd felt so drained for years. I'd been pouring myself into a sieve. My phone rang. David's name on the screen. Mom? I've been thinking about what happened at Thanksgiving. And? I called the twins. Did you know they're working 60 hours a week between them to stay in school? Sam's been donating plasma for grocery money. My heart clenched. I didn't know. Aunt Laura told them the family was tightening belts and they needed to be more self-sufficient. Meanwhile, she bought a new car last month. A Mercedes. I closed my eyes. David, you should stop helping them, Mom. Not just with the studio thing. All of it. They're not your responsibility. They're family. So am I. So are you. And you've been sacrificing your own family, us, for people who don't even appreciate it. After we hung up, I walked through the studio one more time, really seeing it. 25 years of patient building, of careful choices, of dreams made manifest in clay and fire. I'd created something beautiful here, something lasting. And I'd been ready to give it up because other people's poor planning constituted my emergency. Not anymore. Present the studio, evening light. The studio was quiet except for the gentle hum of the kiln finishing its firing cycle. I'd spent the day working on my final American pieces, works that would stay here while I started over in Japan. Each piece told part of my story. The struggles, the sacrifice, the slow realization that I'd been enabling my own invisible life. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Through the window, I saw David's car in the driveway, but also a car I didn't recognize, a modest Honda with Washington state plates. Mom? David's voice called from outside. I brought someone who wants to meet you. I opened the door to find David standing with a young woman who looked familiar in a way I couldn't place. She had Laura's bone structure, but gentler eyes, and there was something about her smile that reminded me of Grandma Rose. Mom, this is Sarah. You know, the twin? My niece stepped forward, and I saw that she had clay under her fingernails, unexpected on someone I'd always pictured as following Laura's path toward designer perfection. Aunt Ellen? I'm sorry to just show up like this. I drove down from Seattle with David. I've been wanting to meet you well, for years. Sarah? I looked between her and David, confused. Shouldn't you be in school? Winter break, she said, then hesitated. Actually, I need to tell you something. About Mom, about the money, about everything. I invited them in, put the kettle on for tea, a habit learned from Mom, though I promised myself this conversation would be different from that disastrous family dinner. I know about the gambling, Sarah said without preamble. About Dad's business, about the money you've been sending. I've known for months. Sarah, I work in the campus financial aid office, she continued. I process student account payments. I recognize the routing number on our tuition payments as the same one from your pottery business. I've been watching money appear in our accounts for months, always anonymous, always just enough to cover what we needed. My heart sank. You knew it was me? I suspected. But I didn't know how much until I talked to Sam. We compared notes. She reached into her backpack, pulled out a tablet. We've been tracking the payments, trying to figure out how to pay you back. The spreadsheet on her screen was meticulously detailed, dates, amounts, purposes. Thousands of dollars over the past 2 years alone. Sarah, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Her voice was firm, carrying an authority that seemed beyond her 20 years. Because Mom and Dad have been lying to everyone, including us. They told us you were financially secure, that the family was helping each other out. They made it sound like it was mutual support. David leaned forward. Tell her about the art therapy program. Sarah's cheeks flushed pink. I've been taking ceramics classes at school. Started as an elective, but she looked around the studio with wonder. I never knew this was what you did. Mom always described it as a hobby. She never told us you were a real artist. There's no such thing as not being a real artist, I said automatically, then caught myself. It was something Grandma Rose used to say. Sam's been saving money to visit you, Sarah continued. We've both wanted to learn about this part of the family, but Mom always said you were too busy, or that we wouldn't be interested in art stuff. I sat down heavily in my work chair. Another layer of Laura's manipulation revealed. Another relationship she'd managed without my knowledge. There's something else, Sarah said hesitantly. About the studio. Mom's been telling people in town that you're moving, that the space will be available for rent. She's already shown it to potential tenants. The room spun. She's what? 3 different people last week. She told them you decided to pursue other interests and that she was helping manage the transition. She even gave them a tour. David's face was thunderous. She's trying to force your hand. Make it a fait accompli. I stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the garden Grandma Rose had planted looked peaceful in the November twilight. But inside my chest, a volcano was erupting. She doesn't have the right, I said, more to myself than to them. Actually, Sarah said quietly, she's been telling people she's your business partner. That she's been helping manage your career for years. She has keys to the studio. Keys I'd given her in case of emergency, back when I still believed family meant mutual support. What are you going to do? David asked. I turned back to them. This young woman I barely knew, but who shared my love of clay, and my son who'd driven 8 hours to bring her to me. Here was family. Real family. The kind that builds each other up instead of using each other as backup plans. I'm going to protect what's mine, I said. And I think it's time your mother learned that there are consequences for treating people like resources instead of human beings. Present the next morning, strategic planning. Margaret answered on the second ring. Her voice warmed despite the 13-hour time difference. Ellen, I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. Is everything all right? I need to move up my departure date, I said, pacing around the studio while Sarah worked quietly at the wheel. She'd asked if she could try throwing a pot, and watching her hands find the clay center had been like watching genetics express themselves in real time. How much sooner? This weekend. A pause. That's quite a change. Has something happened? I looked around the studio at Sarah learning, at David helping catalog pieces for storage, at the life I'd built being threatened by people who'd never understood its value. My family seems to think they own my life, I said. I'm ready to prove them wrong. I can arrange emergency housing, expedite your visa paperwork. But Ellen, are you sure? Running away isn't always. I'm not running away. I'm running towards something. There's a difference. After I hung up, David looked up from the inventory spreadsheet he'd been creating. What can we do to help? That afternoon, we changed the locks on the studio. Then we visited my lawyer, updated my will, set up a trust for the studio building that would ensure no one could claim it regardless of family pressure. Sarah helped me pack the pieces I wanted to take, her careful handling of each bowl and vase showing an intuitive understanding of ceramics that took most people years to develop. Have you ever considered studying this formally? I asked her. I can't afford it. I looked into art schools, but she shrugged, the gesture heartbreakingly familiar. Mom says artists don't make real money anyway. What does your heart say? She was quiet for a long moment, centering a new piece of clay on the wheel. My heart says this feels like coming home. Present 2 days before departure, the confrontation attempt. Laura arrived at 10 in the morning, letting herself in with the key that no longer worked. I heard her trying the lock 3 times before she started banging on the door. Ellen, open up. We need to talk. Through the window, I could see her face was blotchy with crying, her usually perfect hair disheveled. Behind her stood a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, probably the lawyer she'd mentioned bringing. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. Laura, and friend, this is ridiculous, she said, her voice shaking. You changed the locks? On your own sister? On someone who was showing my studio to strangers without permission. Her face went white. I was trying to help. Dad needs assisted living with qualified medical staff, not a converted pottery studio managed by people with no training. I've already researched facilities and found 3 excellent options within his insurance coverage. The lawyer stepped forward. Ms. Martin, I'm James Kellner, your sister's attorney. I believe there's been a misunderstanding about the family property. There's no misunderstanding. This is my property, purchased with my money, deeded in my name alone. Would you like to see the paperwork? Laura pushed past him. Ellen, please. My marriage is falling apart. The kids hate me. I've lost everything. I need you. You need therapy. You need to take responsibility for your choices. You need to stop using other people as life preservers while you drown in your own decisions. I'm your sister. She screamed loud enough that neighbors might hear. Yes, I said quietly. You are, and I love you enough to stop enabling your self-destruction. The studio is being leased to the Women's Ceramic Collective. Dad has excellent care options. You have a car you can sell, a condo you can downsize from, and twins who would respect you more if you stop lying to them. You can't just abandon family. I'm not abandoning you. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference, though I understand why you might be confused. I never taught you the distinction. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, leaning against it as Laura continued shouting from the other side. Eventually, her voice faded, replaced by the sound of car doors slamming and engines starting. Sarah emerged from the back room where she'd been tactfully hiding. That was intense. That was overdue. Present evening before departure, final preparations. The studio felt different with half the pieces gone and boxes stacked along the walls. Sarah and Sam, who'd driven down that afternoon, were carefully wrapping the last items I decided not to take to Japan. Watching them work together, I could see the strength Laura's chaos had forced them to develop. They moved with the confidence of people who'd learned early that they could only rely on themselves. "We want to pay you back," Sam said, not looking up from the bubble wrap. "It might take a while, but we've worked out a plan." The money was a gift. "It was manipulation," Sarah corrected gently. "You gave it to help us, but Mom used it to manipulate all of us. We want to return it so you can use it for yourself. For your art." David handed me a cup of tea, loose leaf, the good stuff I saved for special occasions. "I've been thinking about what you said at Thanksgiving, about the family safety net only working one direction. David, when I was a kid, I thought you were the strongest person in the world. You handled everything, dad leaving, money problems, starting the business. But I realized recently that strength isn't the same as being invulnerable. You shouldn't have had to carry everyone else's problems." I sat in Grandma Rose's old chair, surrounded by the next generation, my son, my nieces and nephews who were just now learning who I really was. This was what family should feel like: support flowing both ways, respect for individual dreams, love without conditions or debts. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is from your mother's phone. Please call us." "Dad." I showed the message to David, who shook his head. "You don't have to." "I know." But I dialed the number anyway. "Ellen?" Dad's voice was weaker than usual. "Your mother's very upset. She's been crying for 2 days. I'm sorry she's upset. I'm not sorry for protecting myself. Couldn't we work something out? Some kind of compromise?" I looked around the studio one last time, at the wheel where I'd learned to center clay and myself, at the kiln where transformation happened through fire, at the shelves where beauty and function lived in harmony. "Dad, I've been compromising for 30 years. It's someone else's turn." Present departure day. The airport. David insisted on driving me to the airport, even though it meant missing work. Sarah came too, carrying a piece she'd finished the night before, a small bowl, imperfect but lovely, with the distinctive off-center charm of a beginner's work. "I made this for you," she said as we reached security. "So you'll remember that you're not just an aunt or a sister or a daughter. You're a teacher and an inspiration." I hugged them both, these young people who'd shown me that love didn't require sacrifice of self. David held on longer than usual, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Mom." Finally, as the plane lifted off, I pressed my face to the window, watching Pennsylvania grow smaller beneath us. Somewhere down there, my family was dealing with consequences they'd never faced while I was around to clean up their messes. Mom was probably still crying. Laura was probably still furious. Dad was probably confused about where the family safety net had gone. But somewhere else down there, the Women's Ceramic Collective was moving into my studio, ready to fill it with new energy and fresh creation. Sarah was applying to transfer to art schools with strong ceramics programs. Sam was learning that family debts weren't inheritance obligations. I pulled out my sketchbook and began drawing, not plans for pottery, but plans for the person I was becoming. Someone who loved freely, but didn't sacrifice endlessly. Someone who created beauty without apology. Someone who understood that the greatest gift you could give the people you loved was the example of a life fully lived. Epilogue is 6 months later, Kyoto. The tea bowl in my hands was perfect in its imperfection, a crack running down one side that I'd filled with gold in the Japanese tradition of kintsugi. Making broken things beautiful. Making scars into art. "Your family called again," Margaret said, settling beside me in the Academy's garden where cherry blossoms drifted like snow. "Your assistant says they've been asking for your return date." Every week for 6 months, I smiled, watching a group of students practice throwing pots in the afternoon sun. I think they're starting to understand that I'm not coming back to the same life I left. The collection is nearly ready for exhibition. Have you decided on a title? I thought about the pieces I'd created in Kyoto, works that explored absence and presence, tradition and innovation, the beauty of things broken and remade. The centerpiece was a large installation, dozens of vessels in various states of completion, some cracked and mended with gold, others smooth and perfect, all arranged around a central empty space that somehow made the whole composition complete. Inheritance, I said. I'm calling it inheritance. My phone buzzed with notifications I'd learned to ignore. But this one was different, a photo from Sarah, showing her acceptance letter to the Rhode Island School of Design's ceramics program. The scholarship mentioned was one I'd funded anonymously with my first major sale in Japan. A second message followed. Sam and I are moving into the apartment above the studio next month. The collective says we can help with classes in exchange for workspace. Thank you for showing us what family really means. Margaret read over my shoulder and smiled. Looks like you're not the only one learning to choose themselves. I set down the tea bowl and picked up my brush, adding final touches to the painting I'd been working on, a landscape that showed absence as clearly as presence, negative space filled with potential. The acceptance letter from the Venice Biennial lay on my desk, inviting me to represent American ceramics at next year's exhibition. The timing would be perfect, a year in Kyoto, followed by 6 months preparing for the most prestigious art show in the world. 2 years away from the life that had almost swallowed me whole. David had visited last month, bringing photos of the studio transformed into a thriving community space. Mom looks different in these pictures, he'd observed, flipping through images of me teaching master classes to local artists. Lighter somehow. He was right. I felt lighter, like clay that had finally found its center after years of wobbling off balance. The weight of other people's expectations had been replaced by the satisfying heft of my own goals, my own dreams, my own choices. Another message arrived, this one from Laura. I almost deleted it unread, but something made me pause. Ellen, I'm in therapy now. Real therapy, not just crisis management. Dr. Reeves says I need to understand the difference between asking for help and demanding sacrifice. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm finally seeing what I took from you all those years. I hope you're happy in Japan. I hope you never come back to being the person who caught everyone else when they fell. I hope you learn to fly instead. I stared at the message for a long time, recognizing something I'd never heard from Laura before. Accountability without expectation. Maybe therapy was working. Maybe it was too little, too late. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was the clay waiting on my wheel, the kiln ready for firing, the space I'd created around myself that no one could invade without invitation. What mattered was the young artists here who looked to me as a master, not a safety net. What mattered was the life I was building one careful choice at a time. I put my phone aside and returned to my painting. The gallery wanted an artist's statement for the exhibition catalog, something that explained the concept behind inheritance, what we receive, what we pass on, what we choose to carry forward, and what we have the courage to leave behind. I dipped my brush in gold paint and wrote across the bottom of the canvas. Sometimes the greatest inheritance is the life you give yourself. Outside, temple bells marked the end of another day. Inside, a woman who had once been everyone's backup plan was becoming her own first choice. The transformation wasn't finished yet. Like ceramic ware, I was still in the kiln, still hardening into my final form. But I was no longer afraid of the fire. I'd learned that breaking and mending could make something stronger than it had been before. I'd learned that empty spaces could be as beautiful as filled ones. Most importantly, I'd learned that love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was just another form of clay, soft and shapeless, waiting for someone else to decide what it should become. I was finally deciding for myself. The last light of day illuminated my workspace, where dozens of pieces waited in various stages of completion. Tomorrow, I would teach a class on glazing techniques. Next week, I would visit a master potter in the mountains who'd agreed to share secrets passed down through generations. Next month, I would begin preparing for Venice, for the chance to show the world what inheritance really meant. My phone remained silent. I'd stopped expecting emergency calls, stopped jumping at every notification. The world somehow continued turning without my constant intervention. Laura would figure out her life or she wouldn't. Dad would adjust to assisted living or he wouldn't. Mom would accept my choices or she wouldn't. I would continue creating, continue growing, continue choosing myself, one careful, deliberate decision at a time. The clay on my wheel was centered now, ready to become something beautiful. Like me, it had found its balance. Like me, it was no longer afraid of the artist's hands shaping its future. I began to work. You're no longer my daughter. My mother's words sliced through the conference room like a blade, her pen scratching an angry signature across the restraining order. Her eyes, so like mine but colder now, refused to meet my gaze. I should feel something grief, perhaps, or regret. Instead, there's only a strange lightness spreading through my chest. Freedom. After 52 years of being Eleanor Morgan, dutiful daughter and eternal family ATM, I am finally just Ellie. I hope you're happy in your precious house, all alone. She spits, gathering her designer purse, the one I paid for last Christmas when her credit card was maxed out again. I'd rather be alone than exploited. I hear myself say, my voice steadier than I expected. Across the polished conference table, my father stares at his hands, shoulders slumped in defeat. My sister Becky, mascara streaking her face, stands dramatically, every inch the victim she's always portrayed herself to be. My children will never forgive you, she declares, voice breaking on cue. I think of Ashley and Tyler, waiting outside with Bennett's assistant, finally free from being props in their mother's emotional theater. Your children, I say quietly, are playing happily with age-appropriate toys instead of being used as emotional weapons. Maybe think about that. How did we get here? How did my family, the people who should love me most, become the ones I needed legal protection from? The answer lies in 25 years of receipts, IOUs, and bank transfers. In the manila folder that saved me. In the words I finally found the courage to say, no, not anymore. Not ever again. Flashback 3 weeks earlier, the late afternoon sun streams through my newly installed bay windows, casting golden light across the reclaimed wood floors I'd spent 3 weekends refinishing. Each ray illuminates another detail of the home I've created for myself: vintage brass handles sourced from an antique shop in New Hampshire, hand-painted Mexican tiles in the kitchen backsplash, the watercolor I'd splurged on at that gallery in Boston. At 52, I've finally built my sanctuary. After 25 years managing IT projects and 15 people under me, I've earned this every square inch bought with overtime hours and skipped vacations. My early retirement fund is healthy. My garden is beginning to bloom, and for the first time in decades, I'm learning what it means to put myself first. The doorbell shatters my peaceful moment. Through the security camera, I see them all crowded on my front porch, my mother Judith, lips pinched into that familiar disapproving line. My father Richard hovering anxiously behind her. My sister Rebecca, it's Becky now, Eleanor, don't be so formal, dabbing theatrically at her eyes, and my teenage niece Ashley and 12-year-old nephew Tyler fidgeting restlessly. I consider not answering. In the 3 months since I bought this townhouse, they visited exactly once for the housewarming party where my mother commented that my choice of paint colors was a bit ambitious for someone like you. But old habits die hard. I open the door, and my mother pushes past me into the foyer. Aren't you going to invite us in? She says, as if I hadn't just done exactly that by opening the door. The others follow like a wave breaking through a dam. I'll make tea, I offer automatically, falling into my usual role of peacekeeper, caretaker, problem solver. Don't bother, my mother says, settling herself onto my carefully chosen cream sectional. This won't take long. Becky lets out a theatrical sob. Greg left me. He just left, cleaned out our accounts and everything. I blink in surprise. Greg was many things: impatient, sometimes brusque, but a thief? That didn't sound like the brother-in-law I'd known for 15 years. I'm so sorry, I begin. Eleanor, my mother cuts in, using my full name like she always does when delivering pronouncements. Your sister needs your house. The world tilts slightly. What? She's homeless, my father adds, as if that explains everything. The kids need stability. I look around at my living room, at the life I've built plank by plank, paycheck by paycheck. But this is my house, I say slowly, hearing the absurdity of having to state something so obvious. I just finished renovating. My mother waves her hand dismissively. Oh, the renovations. Always with the renovations. Your sister has actual problems, real ones. You can just rent somewhere else. You're single. You don't need all this space. Ashley tugs at my sleeve. Auntie Ellie, Mommy says we're going to live in your pretty house. Something cold and hard forms in my stomach. Nobody is living in my house, I say firmly, though my hands have started to shake. I can help Becky look for apartments. Don't be selfish, my father interrupts, his voice taking on that disappointed tone I've heard my entire life. This is family. Family helps family. The last straw, I have helped. The words burst out before I can stop them, decades of suppressed frustration behind them. I've always helped. Who paid for Becky's essential oils business last year? Who covered Mom's cruise when her credit card was maxed out? I see the quick, warning glance my mother gives my father. They've always communicated this way, silent signals that meant shut her down. That was different, Becky sniffles, her tears magically subsiding now that she needs to argue. Those were just loans. This is about my children. My mother stands up, straightening her designer blouse, the one I recognized from Nordstrom's spring collection, the one I knew she couldn't afford on my father's modest pension. My father, who had spent his career as an accountant but somehow never managed our family finances well, reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded paper. He lays it on my dining table, the one I'd restored myself over countless weekends, sanding away years of neglect to reveal the beautiful grain beneath. We've prepared an eviction notice, he says, not quite meeting my eyes, to make it official. You have 30 days. I pick up the paper with numb fingers. It's clearly printed from some template they found online, full of typos and missing crucial legal information. But the intent behind it, the sheer audacity of what they're trying to do, makes my chest tight. This isn't legal, I manage to say. You can't evict me from a house I own. Don't be dramatic, Eleanor, my mother sighs. We're not evicting you. We're just redistributing family resources to where they're needed most. Becky has children. Yeah, Becky chimes in, suddenly looking less tearful and more calculating. And your guest room is bigger than my old master bedroom. I stare at them. My mother's expectant face, my father's studied avoidance, Becky's growing excitement as she points out to her kids where their toys could go. They truly believe they could just take my house, my sanctuary, everything I've worked for. A memory flashes through my mind. I'm 16, babysitting for free while my parents take 14-year-old Becky shopping for her homecoming dress. We'll get you something next year, they'd promised. But next year came, and they'd forgotten. Just like they'd forgotten my college application fees but found money for Becky's cheerleading camp. Just like they'd forgotten my 30th birthday but thrown Becky a lavish party for her 28th. You need to leave, I say quietly. Eleanor, my father starts, using his accountant voice, the one that always made me feel like I was a mathematical error in need of correction. Now, my voice is stronger. Get out of my house. Well, my mother gathers her designer purse. I see you need time to process this. We'll give you a day to come to your senses, but remember, 30 days. She taps the paper on the table. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. They file out, Becky pausing in the doorway. I was thinking of painting the living room blue, she says, as if I hadn't just ordered them to leave. This beige is so boring. I close the door behind them and lean against it, my legs barely holding me up. Through the window, I can see them getting into their cars, already discussing my house as if it's theirs. The eviction notice sits on my table like a declaration of war. The breaking point continued. I stare at the eviction notice until the words blur. My phone buzzes. 3 texts from Becky about paint samples and whether I'd be leaving the curtains. I turn it face down on the table and walk to my home office. The filing cabinet in the corner holds more than just work contracts. I pull out a thick manila folder, my hands steady now. Inside is every receipt, every bank transfer, every hastily scribbled IOU from the past decade. I'd kept them out of habit, the same meticulous attention to detail that had earned me my senior position at the tech firm. Organization and documentation skills I developed as the responsible child in a family of irresponsible adults. My mother had been a school teacher before early retirement, always talking about shaping young minds, but never quite managing to manage her credit cards. My father, the accountant who couldn't account for where his 401k had gone, always blaming market forces rather than his own poor choices. And Becky, my beautiful, charming sister who drifted from job to job, man to man, always landing on her feet because someone, usually me, was there to catch her. I pick up my phone and call Vanessa, my friend since college days. Her voice comes through on the first ring. Girl, you sound terrible. What happened? I tell her everything, my voice cracking only once. They did what? Vanessa's outrage is comforting. Please tell me you're not actually considering it. Of course not, but no buts. Remember last Christmas when Becky borrowed your car and returned it with an empty tank and a dented fender? Or when your mom guilt-tripped you into paying for their vacation because your father works so hard? That man hasn't worked in 3 years, Ellie. I spread the papers across my desk. I have records of everything they've borrowed, never paid back a cent. How much? I do a quick calculation. Over $230,000. There's a moment of stunned silence. Jesus, Ellie. I know. I pick up a note in Becky's loopy handwriting. I owe you $3,000 for business startup. Thanks, sis. 3,000. That was for her essential oils thing. She sold everything at a loss and blamed the market. And now they want my house. Vanessa's voice hardens. Hell no. You need a lawyer. They're family. Family doesn't try to steal your house. What's next? Your kidney? My phone buzzes again. A text from my mother. Becky's crying because you're being so difficult. Think of the children. The children, I say to Vanessa, they keep using Ashley and Tyler as leverage. I pause, remembering how tired my niece had looked, how sullen compared to the bright, curious girl I once knew. How much Tyler had withdrawn over the past year. You know what's best for those kids? Seeing their mother face consequences for once. Has anyone even verified Greg left her penniless? I hesitate. No. They just said, call Greg. I couldn't possibly. Watch me. Keys click on Vanessa's end. He's still connected to my cousin on Facebook. Here we go. Recent post. Finalizing divorce settlement, trying to be fair despite everything. Doesn't sound like someone who cleaned out the accounts. Another buzz. My father. Your mother's very upset. You're tearing this family apart. I look at the stack of IOUs. They really think I'll cave because I always have. A memory surfaces. My mother at my college graduation, saying, it's a shame you chose computer science instead of teaching. You would have had summers off to help with Becky's kids. I'd been single and childless at 22, but somehow my future had already been mapped out as the family support system. They've always treated me like their personal ATM. I say, my voice hardening. But this, trying to take my home, acting like I owe it to them. So what are you going to do about it? Vanessa's question hangs in the air. I pick up the pathetic excuse for an eviction notice, then look at my folder of evidence, a decade of financial abuse documented in black and white. I'm going to show them exactly who they're dealing with. The counterattack. After hanging up, I send a brief email to Catherine Rodriguez's office, attaching scans of the eviction notice and a few choice IOUs. Catherine Akay to her clients had been the senior partner at the law firm I'd helped during a devastating cyber attack last year. She'd given me her personal number, said if I ever needed anything, call her. Her response comes within minutes. In meetings all day, but this is outrageous. Call my cell at 5 p.m. Sharp. We'll fix this. My phone buzzes again. A family group text from my mother. Dinner tomorrow to discuss Eleanor's move-out timeline. 6 p.m. Sharp. Don't be late. I don't respond. Instead, I make coffee and start scanning every document, every message, every manipulative text. 25 years of being the family bank, documented in exhaustive detail. The kind of detail that had earned me Employee of the Year 3 times running at my firm. that had allowed me to accumulate enough to retire early at 55 before they tried to take even that from me. By the time 5 p.m. rolls around, I have a complete digital record of their exploitation. The eviction notice still sits on my table, a symbol of their ultimate entitlement. They thought it was their trump card. They have no idea it's about to become mine. My phone shows 4:59 p.m. I pick it up, Kate's number ready. Time to show my family what happens when you push too far. Kate's voice is exactly as I remembered, calm, precise, with an undercurrent of steel. Her slight Latino accent becomes more pronounced when she's angry, and I can hear it now. Ellie, I've been reviewing what you sent. Tell me everything. I laid out chronologically, starting with their ambush and ending with Becky's impromptu exterior design consultation. Kate listens without interrupting, though I hear her pen scratching notes. Let me be clear, she says when I finish. They presented you with a fake eviction notice for property you own outright? Yes, they found some template online. And your sister is claiming her ex-husband left her destitute? That's what they say. Interesting. More scratching. Because I just had my assistant do some preliminary research. Your sister's ex-husband filed all his divorce paperwork properly. The settlement includes a substantial alimony payment and half their marital assets. I sit up straighter. So she's not homeless? No, unless she's managed to burn through a considerable sum in record time. She pauses. Now, about these loans. I have everything documented. Dates, amounts, their promises to repay, which they never did. Not a cent. And the total is $230,412, plus interest if we're counting that. Kate lets out a low whistle. We're definitely counting that, Ellie. Do you know why I took your call immediately? Because I helped with the cyber attack? Partially, but mainly because I remember how you handled that crisis. Methodical, thorough, kept perfect records. I see that wasn't a one-off trait. I glance at my meticulously organized folder. I just like things documented. I don't add that my childhood had taught me that documentation was the only defense against gaslighting, against my mother's convenient memory that forgot promises as soon as they became inconvenient, against my father's revisionist history that painted me as always the difficult one, the selfish one. That attention to detail is about to pay off. Here's what we're going to do. For the next 20 minutes, Kate outlines her strategy. With each point, I feel my spine straightening, my confidence growing. I'll have the first draft ready tomorrow, she says. But Ellie, I need you to do something important tonight. What's that? Nothing. Nothing at all. Don't respond to their messages. Don't attend their dinner. Don't engage in any way. Can you do that? My phone buzzes with another text from my mother. Your silence is very immature. 52 years of conditioning screams at me to respond, to apologize, to make peace. But something new, something that feels like self-respect whispers louder. Yes, I say firmly, I can do that. Good. Because tomorrow we're going to teach them about consequences. After hanging up, I order takeout and watch my phone light up with increasingly demanding messages. Becky, I need your paint samples by tomorrow. Mother, this behavior is exactly why we worry about your judgment. Father, your mother can't sleep because of this. Around midnight, my Aunt Patricia, Patty, calls. Unlike the rest of my family, Aunt Patty had always been somewhat reasonable, a retired professor who'd chosen independence over the family's expectations. I let the call go to voicemail. Her message is predictably guilt-laden. Ellie, honey, everyone's so worried. Just come to dinner tomorrow, and we can work this out like family. I delete it, turn off my phone, and sleep more peacefully than I have in years. The Declaration of Independence. The next morning, Kate's email arrives exactly at 9 a.m. The attached letter is a masterpiece of legal precision. It addresses my parents and Becky by their full legal names. It references specific laws they violated. It details every loan with dates and amounts, including calculated interest. The final paragraph is particularly satisfying. Furthermore, my client demands immediate cessation of all harassment and trespassing attempts. Any future unauthorized visits to her property will result in immediate legal action. You have 10 business days to propose a reasonable repayment schedule for the outstanding debt of $230,412, plus applicable interest. Failure to respond will result in formal legal proceedings. I read it 3 times, my smile growing wider each time. One more thing, Kate says when I called to approve it. I had my investigator do some digging. Want to know what your sister spent her divorce settlement on? Tell me. A 2-week spa retreat in Arizona. First class flights. She got back 3 days before showing up at your door. I think about her tears, her claims of destitution, her children supposedly facing homelessness. Another memory surfaces. Becky at 16, crying dramatically because our parents couldn't afford the designer jeans every girl in school had until they somehow found the money by canceling my college visit that same weekend. Send the letter, I say, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Already done. Certified mail, delivery confirmation required. They should receive it right about now, actually. I imagine their faces as they read it. My mother's righteous indignation crumbling, my father's false confidence evaporating, Becky's paint swatches dropping from her manicured fingers. Kate, I say, thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. They're not going to take this well. I know. Are you ready for that? I look around my beautiful home, my sanctuary that I built through years of hard work, every inch of it earned, every detail chosen with care. Yes, I say, I'm ready. Good. Keep your phone on. The fireworks should start any minute now. As if on cue, my phone starts buzzing. The war has begun. The first call comes exactly 17 minutes after Kate's letter would have arrived, my mother. I let it ring. Then my father. Ignored. Becky, straight to voicemail. They cycle through like this for an hour before my Aunt Patty's number appears. Unlike the others, Patty had always been something of a rebel in our family, choosing an academic career over marriage, travel over settling down. Though she never directly intervened in our family dynamics, she'd occasionally slip me knowing looks at holiday gatherings, silent acknowledgments of the dysfunction we both recognized. I pick up. Ellie, her voice is hushed, conspiratorial. I'm at your parents' house. You need to know what's happening. I can imagine. No, you really can't. A door closes in the background. Your mother is absolutely apoplectic. I've never seen her like this. She's been pacing the living room for 30 minutes, waving that letter around like a weapon. Despite everything, I feel a flutter of satisfaction. What about Dad? He looks like he's seen a ghost, keeps muttering about his retirement fund. A pause. Ellie, the amount in that letter. Is it accurate? Down to the last penny. I have records of everything. Your mother's claiming you made it all up. Of course she is. I open my laptop, where I'd organized all the evidence. Would she like to explain the cruise tickets I paid for, or the check I wrote for Dad's golf club membership? Patty is quiet for a moment. And Becky just got back from a luxury spa retreat in Arizona, first class all the way. What? Patty's whisper turns sharp. But she told everyone Greg left her penniless. She lied like she always does. Through the phone, I hear a crash, followed by my mother's voice. This is extortion. My own daughter. Hold on. Patty murmurs. More background noise. Then your mother just threw her favorite vase at the wall, the one you bought her last Christmas. Fitting. Becky's here now, too. She's, oh my. Patty's voice drops even lower. She's having what I can only describe as a tantrum, screaming about her children's future. Your mother's encouraging it, and Dad's still doing his ghost impression. Oh wait, he's finally speaking. He's asking your mother how they're going to pay it back. She's not taking that well at all. I hear my mother's distant shriek. Pay it back? Pay it back? She's our daughter. She owes us. The words hit me like a physical blow. There it is, the naked truth behind decades of manipulation. In their minds, I owed them. My existence was a debt I could never repay. No wonder nothing I ever did was enough. Ellie, Patty says. I should tell you, they're talking about calling their own lawyer. Good. They should. You're not worried? Kate already checked. They can't afford any lawyer who could challenge this. More background chaos. Then Patty's urgent whisper. Becky's calling Greg. Oh dear. She's demanding more money from him to fight this injustice. He's laughing at her. I can hear him laughing through the phone. I can't help but smile. Greg had put up with Becky's drama for 15 years. He probably felt vindicated. Your mother's now saying she'll sell her jewelry collection, Patty reports. The one I helped her insure. Good idea. Ellie, Patty hesitates. I know they've always favored Becky. I know they've taken advantage, but this is nuclear. No, Aunt Patty, this is consequences. A door slams in the background, followed by more shouting. Patty sighs. Becky just announced she's going to drive to your house. Your mother's getting her car keys too. Perfect. Kate already filed a harassment warning with the police. If they show up, they'll be arrested for trespassing. You've really thought this through. I learned from the best. They taught me all about planning and manipulation. I just got better at it than they expected. Another crash, more screaming. Patty's voice turns urgent. I have to go. Your mother's talking about calling every relative in the family directory. Brace yourself. Thanks for the warning. The escalation. After hanging up, I send a quick text to Kate. They receive the letter. Reaction exactly as expected. Aunt Patty reports chaos. Her response is immediate. Good. Let them spiral. Every inappropriate reaction strengthens our position. My phone starts buzzing again. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, probably already getting my mother's version of events. I switch it to silent and make myself tea in my peaceful kitchen. A text from Vanessa. Just got a crazy call from your mom. Told her I've watched you bail them out for years and hung up. You okay? I look out my window just in time to see my mother's car screech to a halt outside. Becky's right behind it. They look up at my house, faces twisted with rage. I calmly pick up my phone and dial 911. Hello, yes. I'd like to report trespassers at my property. There's already a harassment warning filed. Through the window, I watch my mother's face change as police sirens wail in the distance. For the first time in my life, I see real fear in her eyes. The tea in my hand is still hot, still perfect, just like my victory. The police are surprisingly understanding. They escort my mother and Becky off my property with a formal warning while I watch through my security cameras. Officer Diaz's body language says everything. She's seen this type of family drama before. My phone buzzes with a text from her after they leave. Warning officially logged. Call immediately if they return. Then comes the emotional artillery. First, the voicemails. My mother's voice trembling with practiced devastation. How could you do this to your own mother after everything we've sacrificed for you? Becky somehow crying and screaming simultaneously. My children will be traumatized. Is that what you want, to traumatize innocent children? My father attempting his stern authority voice but sounding scared. This isn't how we raised you. Call off this lawyer nonsense immediately. Then the flying monkeys arrive. Aunt Cassandra, my mother's younger sister and devoted acolyte, calls first. Ellie, sweetie, this has all gone too far. Your mother is beside herself. Is she beside herself about the $230,000 she owes me? Money isn't everything. This is family. Funny how that argument only works in their favor. She gasps. You've changed. You've become cold. No, I've become clear-sighted. There's a difference. Next comes the social media assault. Becky posts a heavily filtered photo of herself with Ashley and Tyler, all wearing their most miserable expressions. The caption is a masterpiece of manipulation. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you trusted most. My children and I are facing homelessness because of family betrayal. Prayer warriors needed. The comments flood in. OMG girl, you're so strong. What kind of monster would do this to children? Family should come first. I screen capture everything and send it to Kate. Her response. Perfect. Every post strengthens our harassment case. Don't respond. My mother tries a new approach, sending an email that is clearly meant to be forwarded to every relative. My dearest daughter, my heart breaks as I write this. Your father and I have always supported your independence, but this betrayal. We only wanted to help your sister in her time of need. Now you're demanding money we don't have, threatening us with lawyers. Where did we go wrong in raising you? What happened to the sweet little girl who used to bake cookies with me? I forward it to Vanessa, who replies, pretty sure that sweet little girl was actually Becky. You were the one they made do their taxes. The truth of that hits home. I've never baked cookies with my mother. I'd been too busy helping my father with household accounts or covering Becky's bounce checks. Even in her manipulations, my mother confuses me with the golden child. A memory surfaces. I'm 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with my father's tax forms spread before me, my math skills already better than his. My mother walks past, ruffling Becky's hair as she plays with her dolls. Your sister is so creative, she tells me. You're a practical one. Not smart. Not special, just useful. My phone lights up with a call from an unknown number. It's Greg, Becky's ex-husband. Ellie? Finally got your number from my lawyer. Listen, Becky's been calling me nonstop, demanding more money to fight your evil schemes. Thought you should know she got over $1 million in this settlement last month. Thanks, Greg. I had a feeling she wasn't exactly destitute. She blew through 100,000 at some spa resort. Now she's playing victim again. He pauses. For what it's worth, I'm glad someone's finally standing up to them. I tried to get Becky to be more responsible with money during our marriage, but your parents always undermine me. Your dad actually told me once that Wilson women don't need to worry about budgets. I think about my father, the accountant who somehow never applied his professional knowledge to his personal life, who taught Becky that money would always materialize when needed because I was the magical ATM making it appear. What about Ashley and Tyler? I ask, genuinely concerned about my niece and nephew. Greg sighs. They're caught in the middle, as usual. Ashley's starting to see through her mother's act. That's why Becky's been keeping her on such a tight leash lately. Tyler still believes everything his mom says. Another pause. I'm trying to get more custody, but you know how the courts favor mothers. After we hung up, I check my email. 3 messages from my father, each with increasingly desperate subject lines. We need to talk. Your mother can't sleep. Our retirement fund. I open the last one. Ellie, the amount your lawyer is demanding would wipe out our savings. Please be reasonable. What about our retirement? What about your sister's children? Think about the family's future. I think about my own future, the one they tried to steal. My house, my sanctuary, my financial security. The turning point. The doorbell rings. Through the camera, I see Aunt Patty holding a paper bag. I brought wine, she says when I open the door, and information. Over glasses of Cabernet, she fills me in. Your mother's called every relative who might have money to lend them. No takers. Your father's looking into reverse mortgages. And Becky, she takes a long sip. Becky's telling everyone she's going to sue you for emotional distress. Kate will love that. Ellie, Patty sets down her glass. I owe you an apology. All these years, I watched them take advantage of you. I never said anything. You're saying something now. Yes, I'm saying something now. She smiles sadly. They never thought you'd fight back. That was their biggest mistake. Why didn't they treat me the same as Becky? The question slips out, one I've held inside for decades. Patty considers this, swirling her wine thoughtfully. Your mother always saw herself in Becky a pretty, social, emotionally volatile. And your father. I think he resented how easily you grasped concepts that took him years to master. She reaches across the table, covering my hand with hers. But there's more to it, Ellie. Some parents. They categorize their children from birth. Becky was designated the special one who needed protection. You were labeled the strong one who could handle anything. It wasn't about love, really. It was about roles. So I was typecast as the family workhorse. Exactly. And once they put you in that box, they couldn't see you any other way. Her eyes, so like my mother's but warmer, meet mine. But you never belonged in that box, Ellie. You were just a child who deserved the same love and support as your sister. A lump forms in my throat. In 52 years, no one in my family has ever acknowledged this fundamental injustice. My phone buzzes again. Another tearful voicemail from my mother. I delete it without listening. They still think they can break me, I say. Patty reaches for the wine bottle. Then they clearly don't know you at all. As we pour second glasses, my security system pings. Becky is driving past again, slowly photographing my house. I pick up my phone to call the police again. The war of attrition is on, but this time I'm not the one being worn down. The confrontation, Kate's call comes early Monday morning. They've hired a lawyer, if you can call him that. How bad? He sent me a rambling email about family obligations and moral duties. Clearly fresh out of law school. Want to hear the best part? Tell me. He's demanding we drop everything in exchange for, quote, a sincere apology and future considerations. I laugh, a sound so foreign to my own ears that it startles me. When was the last time I truly laughed? Future considerations. I've sent back a formal response. They have until Friday to present a reasonable repayment plan or we file suit. My doorbell rings. Through the camera, I see Becky standing there with Ashley and Tyler. Kate, I have to go. Becky's here with the kids. Record everything. I activate my phone's recording app and open the door. Becky has dressed for the occasion in what I recognize as her church outfit, modest floral dress, light makeup, hair pulled back. It's her good mother costume, the one she wears when she wants something from the PTA or needs to impress a teacher. Kids, Becky announces dramatically, say goodbye to Auntie Ellie's house, the house she won't share with you even though you're homeless. Ashley, looking mortified, glances at me apologetically. At 17, with her father's analytical mind and her mother's expressive eyes, she's caught between worlds. Tyler, still baby-faced at 12, stares at his shoes. But Mom, Ashley says quietly, aren't we staying at Grandma's? Becky's face tightens. Ashley, what did I tell you about speaking out of turn? Now cry for Auntie Ellie. Show her how sad you are. That's enough. I keep my voice level. You're trespassing again. The police have already. The police. Becky shrieks, pulling out her phone. Perfect. Film this, kids. Show everyone how mean Auntie Ellie calls the police on children. I press my emergency contact. Officer Diaz answers immediately. Ms. Morgan, another incident? Using her children as props this time. Units are already nearby. Hold tight. Becky is live streaming now. Tears flowing perfectly. My heartless sister is threatening me with police. My babies are traumatized. Tyler tugs her sleeve. Mom, I need to pee. Not now. Mommy's making content. Sirens wail in the distance. Becky's face lights up with perverse excitement. Yes, everyone watch. See how they persecute a single mother. I look at Ashley, who's staring at her mother with a mixture of embarrassment and resignation. Our eyes meet, and I see something there, understanding, perhaps even solidarity. Two police cars pull up. Officer Diaz steps out, looking tired. Ms. Wilson, we've discussed this. There's an active harassment warning. I'm just visiting family with a live stream. Officer Diaz nods at her phone. This is your final warning. Next time means rest. But my children are being used as emotional weapons. Officer Diaz finishes firmly. Don't make us call child services. That threat lands. Becky's stream cuts off instantly. Come on, kids. Your aunt clearly hates you. But Mom, Ashley protests, a spark of rebellion in her eyes. You said we were just making a video to get money from Ashley. Car now. After they leave, Officer Diaz turns to me. We've documented everything. Your lawyer will want this footage. I nod gratefully, still processing Ashley's unfinished sentence. Get money from whom? From followers? From my parents? From me? The realization that my niece and nephew have become props in an elaborate emotional blackmail scheme makes my stomach turn. The final showdown, Friday, arrives with a sense of inevitability. Kate's conference room feels like a courtroom. My parents and Becky sit across the massive oak table, their budget lawyer fidgeting with his tie. They brought Ashley and Tyler again, a move Kate had predicted and prepared for. First, Kate says, her Latino accent more pronounced in professional settings. The children need to wait outside with my assistant. This isn't appropriate for them. They're part of this. Becky protests. They're victims. They're props. Kate corrects, and if you continue using them this way, I'll be obligated to report it. After some theatrical resistance, Ashley and Tyler are led out to the children's area Kate had set up. Their relief is visible. Ashley catches my eye as she leaves, the ghost of a smile on her face. Now, Kate begins spreading documents across the table. Let's discuss the harassment first. Harassment? My mother's voice hits that familiar high pitch. We're the ones being harassed with these ridiculous demands. Kate clicks a remote. The wall screen lights up with a compilation. Becky's live stream, my mother with the megaphone, their cars circling my house, the social media posts, the GoFundMe page. Mr. Jenkins, Kate addresses their lawyer. I assume you've advised your clients about the legal implications of these actions? The young lawyer tugs his tie again. We, maintain these were attempts at family reconciliation. Interesting interpretation. Kate plays the clip of Becky coaching her children to cry on command. My father shifts uncomfortably. We were desperate. You're trying to bankrupt us. No. I say, speaking for the first time. I'm asking you to repay what you borrowed. Borrowed? My mother laughs sharply. Family helps family. We never thought you'd be so petty as to keep track. I study my mother's face, the carefully maintained makeup that doesn't quite hide her age, the designer scarf I'm certain came from my credit card last Mother's Day. For the first time, I see her clearly, a woman who spent her life manipulating others to avoid facing her own failures and fears. Actually, Kate presses a button. Images fill the screen. Bank transfers, IOUs, emails promising repayment. Your daughter, Kate continues, has documented everything. Every loan, every promise, every excuse. Their lawyer leans forward, finally looking worried. Perhaps we could discuss a reasonable settlement. The time for negotiation was before the harassment campaign. Kate cuts in. Now, here are your options. She slides documents across the table. Option 1. You sign this agreement to repay the full amount with interest on a structured payment plan. You also sign this restraining order, agreeing to cease all contact unless initiated by Ellie. Or, my father asks weakly. Or we go to court, where I'll present everything. The loans, the harassment, the attempted emotional exploitation of minors, the fraudulent GoFundMe, the false claims about Mr. Wilson's settlement. Shall I continue? Becky bursts into tears, real ones this time. This isn't fair. I'm your sister. I think of all the times I'd covered her expenses, babysat her children, defended her to friends who saw through her act. Was I your sister when you tried to steal my house? We weren't stealing, my mother protests. We were redistributing. Maria, their lawyer interrupts, looking pained. Please stop talking. Kate pushes the agreements closer. You have 10 minutes to decide. Court will be public record, by the way. Every loan, every lie, every manipulation, all available for everyone to see. My father reaches for the papers. My mother slaps his hand away. Richard, don't you dare. She's bluffing. She wouldn't really. I have nothing to lose, I say quietly. Do you? The room falls silent. 10 minutes stretches like taffy. Finally, their lawyer whispers something to them. My father picks up a pen with trembling fingers. This will ruin us, my mother says, her voice breaking. Like trying to steal my house would have ruined me, I reply. One by one, they sign. My mother last, her signature angry and sharp. Excellent, Kate says. Now, about the restraining order. You're no longer my daughter. My mother spits, signing that document too. I hope you're happy in your precious house, all alone. I'd rather be alone than exploited. Becky stands up, mascara running. My children will never forgive you. Your children, I reply, are outside playing happily with age-appropriate toys instead of being used as emotional weapons. Maybe think about that. They file out, defeated and bitter. Through the conference room window, I watch Ashley and Tyler reluctantly leave their games to join their mother. Their genuine smiles fade on cue. As they reach the elevator, Ashley turns back, her eyes finding mine through the glass. She mouths something that looks like, "I'm sorry," before the doors close. Aftermath. Well, Kate says, gathering the signed documents. That went exactly as expected. Will they actually pay? They don't have a choice. The payments will be automatically deducted. If they default, we can place liens on their assets. She pauses. Are you okay? I watch my family disappear into the elevator. My mother's rigid back, my father's slumped shoulders, Becky's dramatic sniffles. I feel. I search for the word. Free, I say finally. I feel free. Freedom, Kate says, her own voice softening with understanding, often comes at a price. They set the price, I reply. I just finally sent them the bill. Outside, the summer sun is bright and clean. I walk to my car alone, but for the first time in my life, alone feels like a choice rather than a punishment. The first automatic payment hits my account on schedule. The second, too. By the third, my mother has canceled her country club membership, and my father has taken a part-time job at a hardware store. Vanessa brings wine to celebrate. Have you seen Becky's latest posts? I'm blocked. She's selling her designer bags, claims she's embracing minimalism. Vanessa scrolls through her phone. Oh, and she's working at that boutique in the mall. The one she used to say was beneath her. My doorbell rings. Through the camera, I see Aunt Patty with a small package. These arrived at my house, she says, handing me a bundle of letters. They're trying to get around the restraining order. I recognize my mother's handwriting, my father's, Becky's. Have you read them? Didn't need to. Judith called to make sure I knew what they said. More guilt, more accusations. She's telling everyone you've destroyed the family. And what do you tell her? That she destroyed it herself long before you fought back. My phone buzzes, a text from Officer Diaz. Thought you should know. Your sister's been warned about driving past your house again. They're still trying. Of course they are, I tell Patty. But look at me. Renovating my garden, starting that coding program for girls, living my life. That's what really drives them crazy. The payments are killing them, I add. Dad asked his sister Cassandra for a loan. She refused. Good. Let them learn about consequences. A car slows outside Becky again, right on schedule. But this time, Ashley is in the passenger seat, and she waves at me before her mother yanks her arm down. The kids miss you, Patty says softly. I miss them too, but they're better off without the drama. My security system pings with a notification from the front door camera. Someone has left flowers. Simple wildflowers, no card. Wasn't me, Patty says, but she's smiling. That evening, I teach my coding class, 20 girls eager to learn. No hidden agendas or emotional manipulation. One of them, Sophie, reminds me of myself at that age. Quiet, detail-oriented, determined. My mom says girls aren't good at computers, she tells me after class. My mom used to say similar things, I reply. Want to know a secret? Moms aren't always right. New beginnings. At home, I find an email from Kate. Your father called my office, asked if we could reduce the payments. I reminded him about the court alternative. He hung up. I clicked through my security cameras out of habit. No family members circling today. The street is quiet, my garden peaceful in the evening light. The butterfly bushes I planted to attract new life, new beauty, are finally blooming. My phone lights up with a text from Greg. Heads up, Becky's telling everyone she's writing a book about toxic family betrayal. Thought you'd want to know. I forwarded to Kate, who replies instantly. Let her try. Discovery would be fascinating. The doorbell rings again. This time it's Vanessa with takeout. Thought you might want company. Patty's coming too. We sit in my kitchen in my house that nobody could take from me, and Vanessa raises her glass. To consequences. To boundaries, Patty adds, a lifetime of observing family dysfunction in her knowing smile. To peace. I say, feeling the words settle in my bones, true and right. Later, after they've left, I find a small package on my porch. Inside is a familiar teacup, one I'd admired in Patty's house years ago. The note reads, "For new memories. Some family we're born with, some we choose. Love, Patty." I place it carefully in my cabinet next to the coffee mug Sophie had given me, decorated with badly drawn computer symbols. My phone buzzes one last time. "Officer Diaz, your sister's car just left the area. Didn't stop this time. Progress, maybe? Or maybe they're just tired. Either way, I don't need to know. Their lives aren't my responsibility anymore." I make tea in my new cup and sit in my garden. A butterfly lands on the flowers I planted, its wings opening and closing slowly, at peace in its chosen spot. Inside my house is quiet, not the suffocating quiet of loneliness, but the peaceful quiet of sanctuary. Every room holds traces of my new life. Student projects from my coding class, plants from Vanessa, Patty's little gifts, photos of genuine smiles and real friendships. I think of my mother's final words to me. "You're no longer my daughter." The pain is there. Yes, 5 decades of conditioning don't vanish overnight. But alongside it is something else. Relief. If I'm no longer her daughter, then I'm no longer bound by her expectations, her demands, her perpetual disappointment. If I'm no longer her daughter, I'm finally free to be myself. The automatic porch light clicks on, illuminating a small section of garden in its glow. More butterflies gather, drawn to the flowers I've chosen, the space I've created. I watch them dance in the fading light. These beautiful creatures that begin as one thing and transform into another, finding their wings only after the struggle to break free. My phone stays silent. No drama, no demands, no guilt, just peace. And in the end, that is the sweetest revenge of all.